I'm hearing a lot. I practice self-inquiry a lot. It seems like it's just becoming a mental exercise and it's not actually about understanding the self anymore. It's mind using attention placed on mind to create more mind. Makes sense. There's an important element missing in this, which is will. I must ultimately want to know myself more than I want to experience mind. Otherwise, my attention is always going to choose mind rather than myself. So to choose mind, to focus on mind, is to narrow the vision, to look at this one thing as though it's the whole thing, as though it's the whole reality. Staring at this thought leads to emotions. Emotions, also the energetic, leads to what is experienced in the body. And then all of this can then be interpreted through mind. So it's like a cycle. So we're going to talk a little bit about that cycle, as well as other ways to look at or frame self-inquiry that I've found to be really effective. So first of all, we're going to talk about the koshas, and we're going to talk about this in a really practical way, why this matters, why I keep talking about it. The way that a human comes to be is that consciousness must have the experience, must go through a process, an illusory process of leaving itself. So it does this by projecting its energy out from itself, vibrating more and more densely as it goes through these different layers of manifestation until we get to the final layer, the densest, grossest, most unconscious layer, which is the physical. And this is the same for other forms. So we start out with bliss. This is where we come from. And then from this bliss, is manifested another layer, which is wisdom. So already built into this human experience before a human body or mind is wisdom and bliss. Bliss first. These are built in. These are ours. Beyond wisdom is mind. That's the next layer. Mind is more dense than wisdom. It can be more apparent and more sort of compelling. We have to allow the registering of more subtle experiences if we're going to knowingly access wisdom and bliss. But a lot of us, all of our attention is placed on mind. And then beyond the mind, the next layer is the energetic and also the emotional. What the mind says impacts the way the energetic layer manifests. If it's believed. If I have my attention trained on mind saying, yep, that sounds right. Yep, okay, I'm watching this all day. Emotional layer will manifest, will show itself to reflect what it is that's being bought into, what mind is generating. Beyond the energetic layer is then the densest, grossest, most obvious, the physical. And the physical body is impacted by the attention on the mind and the energetic or the emotional. If I'm watching these all day, the body is probably going to give me something else to have to watch, to have to tend to. So this physical body is this more obvious representation of what's going on in these other layers. Where my attention is placed, the body is going to tell me about. If I'm watching thoughts all day that say I'm not good enough, the body is going to somewhere tell me that. And it's pretty predictable. That's what the chakras are. They're not magical. They're aspects of the energetic layer of experience that are designed to act upon the body to tell us our attention has been misplaced. So even in the chaos of this game, aspects of this game that want to be played, that want to obscure reality, we still have this tool of the body. If this is a car, the physical body contains or is a dashboard with instruments, an instrument panel that tells us your fuel is low. Check your lights, check your engine. A lot of times, non-duality is attracting, we could say, the more intellectual of the so-called spiritual world, or those who are finding some truth to something but don't consider themselves spiritual. And what you'll find is a resistance to going into the body, to acknowledging our emotions. So we have this mind trying to dismantle itself without paying any attention to the manifestations of it. It's not exactly right. The mind can't look at the manifestations of it. It's our attention being placed, but that's kind of the experience. Let me fix mind stuff while also acting like a mind and avoiding what's unpleasant. So there's this personal investment in the personal that is the foundation for the whole practice, and that can't work. That doesn't mean it's been a waste of time up until now. This often happens. We do this in a personal mode until we realize it's actually the personal mode that we need to drop. As long as I say, I want to awaken because I want Heather, want to have the experience of awakening in this lifetime. So this is to buy into, on some level, the belief that I get this one life, that this is where it all counts. But it's really more like this is where it all counts. The consciousness, back here, the consciousness that is vibrating itself into forms is having the experience of awakening using Heather. Heather is a robot. So using self-inquiry from this perspective then is going to contain divine will to know itself, to experience being reunited with itself, which will ultimately be to recognize that I never left myself. I've been myself this whole time. Having this layered experience of the appearance of obscuring all that I am. Everything out here is not me. So in self-inquiry, we ask, who am I? And we really get into this question. We may work with it for weeks, months, a year. especially if there's mental resistance to it and there's this kind of playing around with mind, using this exercise to create more time for itself, to be still in the spotlight of my attention. Ultimately, we will go past the question, who am I? And we'll go into, what am I? Of all of this apparent reality, what am I in this? And what we'll find here is that everything is made of the same manifestation energy. Everything is subject to physics as it presently functions. So it changes. It's always changing. What can I be? What is always changing? And then the last question we can look at is, where am I? Where is consciousness? Where does it exist? Which we will find that it is sort of everywhere and nowhere the more we investigate this. But these require deep commitment to total honesty, total commitment to reality, to knowing reality, regardless of what it is or how uncomfortable, how much I may have to let go of, or they might have to be the experience of letting go of. So some other ways of framing this that I have found to be more sort of practical, a little bit more pointed, and maybe more impactful at times. One of those is, in this moment, what is blocking happiness? Where is resistance to happiness? What's in the way of me just being happy right now? And we'll tend to find things like, there's a belief that I have to get this done right now. There's the belief that my worth is tied to my job and how much money I make. There's a belief that my worth is tied to making my parents happy, or my children, or my partner, or fitting in with this group. What does this reflect? This reflects a belief in a lack of wholeness of myself. The belief that I am anything other than already this moment, whole and complete, is false. We can prove this to ourselves using nothing, no special equipment. If it doesn't seem like we can prove this to ourselves, there's a buy-in to mind that is rooting the idea that I am something other than that. I know that sounds circle-y. I don't know if there's anything I can do about that or to make that clearer, and I'm not trying to convince you or anyone. You can work this out for yourself. You have to work this out for yourself, ultimately, because through filter of mind, it doesn't seem true or possible. So the first question, what is in the way of my being happy right now? Because, and you don't have to believe this, but you can investigate and eventually come to understand yourself that you did come in with a built-in bliss filter or bliss layer, built-in preceding mind. You have that before mind even showed up. When I go, we could say beyond, or sort of before mind, when I can tap into the moment before, mind comes in to co-opt the experience as though it is the experiencer. So when I can go to that moment just prior to that, tap into it. Bliss is there. It just shows itself. And the same can be said of wisdom. As long as I believe myself to have to work toward a result using effort, mind is running the experience. Mind is saying that. Mind is saying that because adults told me that when I was very small. And it was in my best interest to believe it. And now it feels dangerous to let it go. Because maybe for decades, this is how I have functioned within the lines of society. Another question that we can ask is, in this moment, where is the effortless? Or what is in the way of effortlessness, depending? That's really similar to the other question. They really have sort of the same answer. But it has a different feeling I've experienced. And it comes up at different points. It can be useful in different experiences. So in this moment, if I ask myself, okay, it's total effortlessness, and then something comes up to obscure or to resist the idea of effortlessness, what is that? Am I that? If I am observing and discerning between my noticing of that and that. So where is the effortless? And the last question, way of framing this same inquiry is, where is the unchanging? In the outer chaos of a universe that is built on constant change. All this form is constantly fluxing in and out, in and out, in and out. Not at all solid in the way that we've believed. Where in all this changing is the unchanging? And we can start by unfocusing our eyes and shifting attention from the objects to the space that the objects appear within. And get to know that space, the qualities of it or the lack thereof. And that same space within this experience of body. Ultimately, what I found to be most helpful for me was to take all of this stuff that I had read and listened to and immersed myself in and placed faith in. We don't have to let go per se of that faith, but we start to see all this stuff like a skeleton, like a frame for how I'm going to return to myself that I never left. We take it as a frame. We let go of all the sort of details about it, and we fill in those details based on consulting ourselves. A lot of the time, we don't trust our intuition. Intuition comes from the wisdom layer. We're calling it intuition. We're calling it inspiration. But even these words are too conceptual and too humanized when we interpret them that way. So even let go of the idea that it would be a human kind of wisdom. It's something more formless. So when I'm working on a problem and nothing's coming, and then I say, I'm going to take a break from this, and I jump in the shower. Oh, That moment, right there, that moment is pure, effortless inspiration without filter of mind. Just after that, mind comes in and says, I've figured it out. Here's how we're going to deal with it. Here's what we're going to do. So notice and even recall, kind of relive or work through, just to the extent of recognizing this. Remember the last sort of epiphany you had. The moment of sort of recognition or registering of that epiphany was immediately followed by, was not the same thing as, was followed by mind coming in, pretending, basically narrating, convincingly narrating, look what I found out. The mind has never been your voice. Buying into the human, the idea of the human, at some point activated a personal mode of narration, of like a ticker that's always running and saying, here's how I'm going to survive in the world. So it's all protecting a personal mode that has now completely obscured. In the relative, seemed to completely obscure myself from my own experience of my natural state. Letting go of the person means happily being a kind of alien, experiencing a planet as if for the first time, but all the time. It's like beginner's mind all the time. Never starting to specialize and take on the solidity, the unconsciousness of this outer, physical, inert, gross layer of experience that we're calling matter as if it is its own thing, with its own sort of origin. We're buying into that as its own freestanding reality. I knowingly, as myself, navigating this planet using this body, am at my highest power. Any buy-in to the human as myself is like asking a calculator how I should live my life, like a more advanced calculator. Hey, calculator, what should I do? I'm going to consult my mind for what to think about this situation, for how to feel about this situation. I'm going to consult the mind, and then the mind is going to result in feelings, and then assist or affect the manifestation of the body based on that. I'm having a mind-based reality. Little step back from that. I'm experiencing a reality in which there's mind. I am beyond. I am beyond all of that, but I do have to look closely, carefully, truthfully at all that begins to diminish the mind's importance in this experience. And I diminish the mind's importance by recognizing over and over and over again, in as many ways as I can conjure, how false the thoughts are. How, if I know the thoughts are false, they cannot be me. The intelligence beyond the mind must transcend it, must not be the mind.